I knew the moment we met that this was gonna be our life.
The moment you locked eyes
No,
across
I was
the room,
like,
and you were like, "This girl needs
One
a
girl.
bottle of whiskey."
mm-hmm.
One day.
I had an immediate art crush right there. Immediate.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the We're So Young podcast. My name is Diana, and I am here with Kevin, Ron, and Eddie, who are all part of the White Elephant Group. What is that?
No, that's you, Ronald.
That's me.
Yeah, that's
You
your
got a
crush.
whole spiel.
Yeah,
I got a whole spiel.
It feels
What?
like
Okay. How much money you? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so the White Elephant Group. The White Elephant Group is a film and media collective, and we have one real call to action, which is to create like provocative and challenging work for audiences that expect to see something they haven't seen before.
Nice. You have that solidly down.
Oh yeah.
We've been working it out for like
We get this
10
money.
years.
Yeah.
It takes time.
So you make enough like pitch
Yeah.
decks, you piece it together.
I think it's interesting because I think that what we are now, like this film collective, is what all three of us always wanted it to be, you know. But we just didn't know it when we were younger. So when we were younger, we would start these like film companies and film groups, but we didn't really have a kind of goal. It was like we start this company, we make a film, but this collective idea is more than that. It's like a union of like-minded people who all want to make provocative art. And we're creating it as a group and embracing people who come into this group with us and also have ideas to make art and pursue their art as well.
Yeah.
Whereas I think when we were younger, we didn't have that like shared art collaborative idea. It was more like single-minded.
Yeah, it was a lot more, and I think it had to do a lot with like the upbringing, right? Because the thing is, most art
Yeah.
is you want to paint.
Yeah.
Take a paintbrush, you take paints, you paint, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
express yourself.
Yes.
As an actor, as a filmmaker, it's much more difficult to do it by yourself. It's all
You can't
very
do it. Yeah,
collaborative.
you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah. So as a filmmaker, it's like, all right, so I need like 30 people, about $10,000, about a week at a time, so I can express myself.
So I can express myself. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I
So-
think that so many young filmmakers fail because they think that it's them running the show. Like, I want to be a director.
Well, what's funny is that you said earlier we started all these companies. Like White Elephant really kind of stands on the backs of all these failed endeavors.
Absolutely.
You know, like
Absolutely.
it wasn't until we failed like I think 6 different times that
Whoa.
we actually found something we wanted to do.
And I'm just glad we didn't LLC all those companies, so we'd be broke right now.
You
We
did.
LLC no,
You didn't
some of them.
LLC those companies.
No,
I'm
I-
still
I-
paying off credit cards on that shit.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you brought something up, Eddie, of when you guys were younger. So, something that I love about the three of you, which I wasn't aware that it was all three of you, but all three of you guys have known each other since like birth.
It's almost almost
It feels that way.
So, how did you guys meet? Where did you guys, how do you know each other? Was it like all your tias knew each other?
It's interesting because all three of us grew up in like a few block radius of one another.
Yeah.
Where'd you
Like-
guys grow up?
Like unincorporated
Unincorporated
Miami.
Miami.
Like where we grew up has no name.
Yeah. You know where Dolphin Mall is?
Yes.
It's like in the swamps to the right of Dolphin Mall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was literally just swamp for a
It
long
was
time.
me, a wolf,
Yeah.
Eddie,
Yeah, crocodile.
an owl, and Kevin.
I remember we had a class talking about like, yo, they're building a mall.
Yeah, I remember that too.
It used to be a farm, and then they built Dolphin Mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time I saw a cow.
Yeah.
My
we,
mom worked on that farm.
Did he?
She had her horse there.
Damn.
we all went to middle school together, and I think that in middle school we were all kind of like familiar with each other, but it was in high school that we all really like bonded.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I think in middle school you don't really know who you are yet. You're looking for who you are. And once we got to high school, it was this thing where like, oh, you also like sad emo music, or you also like crazy like foreign films. Like, let's talk about that. And I
Is
think
that
that's
how
what
you
it's-
guys bonded?
We
Emo
bonded a
music
lot.
and
We
foreign
bonded a
films?
lot over music. Music was
music.
like a defining
I think so,
feature
too.
of our childhood.
Oh yeah? How
Yeah.
so?
That was funny. So Eddie kind of introduced this punk rock aesthetic to like our group of friends, where suddenly we started listening to all this like punk from the 90s
punk and
and
80s punk.
yeah, and then I introduced this like sad boy
Emo
aesthetic.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like really lyrical, poetic shit. And then Kevin was always into like metal and like
classic rock.
and all three of us just felt weird as fuck surrounded by like reggaetoneros. Yeah. So it was like we were able to identify each other, ourselves inside each other, and it just kind of like functioned well, where we would like steal from each other and borrow from each other and
Like a very good artist.
yeah.
And I think I remember hearing that you guys were in a band together.
Oh, I was not.
Yeah,
No.
So-
Ronald and I were in a band for most of high school. I want to say 3 out of 4 years of high school.
Yeah.
But it's funny because,
It's actually
Ronald
the reason
and I-
you have your name.
yeah, it is the reason I have my name. That's where the Eddie Moon comes from.
Eddie Moon, yeah.
So
I could have sworn that was your last name.
I know everyone can.
Everyone
Yeah.
thinks so.
Don't tell
Yeah.
anyone that it's not.
Well,
Yeah.
everyone thinks Garley's my last name.
It's not.
No,
Shut up.
it's
What?
not.
But you took that name to like hide another name.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah.
Okay,
I'm
I
not
thought
gonna tell you on the
Do we
podcast.
do we,
Yeah.
do we have to change the credits?
No, please don't.
It just there's something more powerful about choosing your own name.
Oh yeah.
It's like choosing your identity, choosing
Yeah.
who you are.
Shakespeare, man, what's in her name?
Yeah, Shakespeare.
So,
So-
how did Eddie Moon come about?
So when I was a freshman in high school, Ronald and I were in love with the same girl.
It's always a girl.
That's how it happens, right? But
Chick.
Her name was Kevin.
yeah, her name was Kevin. I had started dating her first, and Ronald was very good friends with this girl. And then Ronald, I think he knew me because I was dating her, and I think he wanted to hate me
Okay, so here's what happened.
because I dated her.
Because I was like, oh man, wow, this girl's so perfect. And one day she was like, oh, you want to meet my boyfriend? And I was like, fucking asshole. Yeah, I want to meet this fucking creep. Like, fuck him up outside, like Joe Biden and shit. And so I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. And then I'm like, yo, what's up? I'm Ron. And Eddie's like, hey, I'm Eddie. Life is great. Everything's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm
like
super
that.
positive.
Yeah.
Like that nasally
Yeah,
accent
that's
he
how
was giving you.
And I was sitting there like,
It's about right.
like, so what do you do? He's like, I really like music, man, and I just really want to start a band, but you seem really nice, and like, we're all friends, so like, you know, we should be friends. And I was like, we should be friends? I'm trying to like hook up with your girlfriend. What the fuck are you talking about? We should be friends. And like 48 hours later, I kept a diary in high school, and I think I wrote in the diary something like, I fucking hate that I like this guy. Like, this guy is so sweet, I can't hate him. And I'm like actually really inspired by this person who seems to be like extraordinarily happy even when he's extraordinarily upset. And so that,
To this day.
yeah.
To this day. But I thought he was so cool, and he played guitar, and I didn't play any instrument. So I thought, why not ask him to join a band?
You asked me
But
to
I
be
asked him to be
you
a
asked me to
drummer.
be a drummer.
I asked him to be
Wait.
a drummer.
You didn't have a band?
No, I,
You
I
He didn't
wanted
play
to
an
start.
instrument. He didn't have a band.
I
He knew a
knew an
guitarist
instrument.
that he wanted to be his drummer.
Yeah,
That's how his film
was
career
pretty
started. He
backwards.
was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but fuck it, let's figure this shit out.
yeah. So I asked him to come to my band practice, the first one, as a drummer, because I already had a guitarist and a singer. But there was only one instrument left in the band, which was a bass. So I literally went to Sam Adams in Dolphin Mall, newly built, and I bought a bass because that was the missing element of the band. And then we tried to create a band and realized slowly that none of us know how to write songs.
Okay, so that was weird. Okay, so here's what happened. I had no idea that people didn't write songs. I figured if you played music, you wrote songs. Like it seemed like
Yeah, it goes
You
hand in
big
hand.
glove in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was like, all right, guys, I'm the drummer. Who has a song? And like no one said shit. And I was like, what you mean? Like how do you guys not like? How'd you learn to play? And I was like, well, fuck. Here, I wrote like 15 different songs. I'll play them for you. Tell me what you think. And then they were all like, wow, that was trash. And I was like, yeah, but do you have fucking songs? And they were like, nah. And I was like, all right, defunct lead singer, fuck all of y'all.
And yeah, he became the lead singer.
You became the lead singer?
In like one afternoon, just because no one else had the ability to do it. Basically, like, I won the, the process of elimination.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like, no, fine. Like, that's basically what happened.
No one else.
But you also will go around saying that if you use distortion in your guitar, you weren't a real guitarist.
It's true,
But I feel like he's still
because when I was a teenager, I was a moron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why there's a limited pool of friendship around you.
It's true. There's only like 4 of y'all.
Everyone's
I mean-
looking at each other.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's impressive that you guys are still friends. I'm like
Yeah.
not really friends with
people
most.
you know.
Well, you know what's
But, like,
funny?
yeah.
The other day I saw a trailer for Amy Poehler's directorial debut,
Oh, good.
and it's one of the most beautiful things I ever heard come out of the mouth of a human being. She said, "Yeah, I want to kill most of these bitches most of the time. That's what intimacy looks like." And I was like, "Word."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very true. So this band, we couldn't come up with a name, and after tons of names, we came up with the name Blue Moon. And it was literally just me saying, "Wrong, it's gonna be called Blue Moon," and him being like, "Fine, I don't care anymore." He
But
literally
then-
we were in the car fighting.
Is it
about
because of it's a cider, right? Or
It's
No,
a
that
beer,
was
but it
before
wasn't-
we knew about.
Yeah, we didn't know about beer at this point. It was
Uh-huh.
It was the
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
It was that Blue Moon song.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. And then everyone in the band but me got the last name Moon. So it was Chris Moon, Gilbert Moon, Eddie Moon, and Ronald. Straight up.
Yeah.
And I was like, but why? And I was like the black sheep, even though I was supposed to be like the famous lead singer.
And then you weren't.
I was like so unpopular. I was vastly unpopular in my own group of friends.
But that last name stuck, Eddie Moon, after the band. So even after the band broke up, people just kept calling me that name because they were so used to it.
Yeah.
And I accepted it because it kind of became this like alter ego. Kind of like Sid Vicious,
Yeah.
you know?
Not like Sid
No?
Vicious. No.
I mean, I wasn't cool.
There's not a
How's he
relative
cool?
term between
No.
Sid Vicious and
And
Eddie Moon.
Like, they're both like cool punk guys.
Maybe when you were like 22, but
Maybe.
that's it.
Maybe. I
Not
wanted to be
now.
Sid Vicious.
Sid Vicious watching fucking 1956 foreign Godard films.
Yes.
Get the fuck out of here.
Absolutely. And that's where my life turned afterwards.
So where were you in all this, Kevin?
Oh, I was a total nerd.
Mhm.
I was
Didn't you
drama
go to Magic?
adjacent. Yeah, but I was drama adjacent. So what ended up happening is they were like Ronald was super into the drama program. I had Eddie for like television production and most of like the film classes. So the connection between Ronald and I in high school was hilarious because it was through an instructor talking shit about Ronald to his other students.
It's true. I had
So-
an English teacher who hated me because I was really, really good at English. And so she would
I
be like,
speak good.
well, nah, she would be straight up.
The good
So she'd be like, what is this Emily Dickinson poem about? And I'd be like, it's about this. And she'd be like, you're wrong. And I'd be like, bitch, art is subjective. Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you're 17.
Oh,
And I
you're
was
such
like,
a smart
Yeah.
ass.
I was like, what the fuck? And so this lady hated me so much. I had her second period. And like, I think you had her fifth.
Yeah.
And so she would walk in, you're talking about 5 hours or whatever after the fact. She'd walk into her class and be like, Ronald Bias, piece of shit. Like, she
Yeah. She'd be like, who here knows Ronald? And like everyone would kind of just sit around and I'd be like, I do. And she's like, all right, well, let me tell you something about Ronald.
It's funny because I feel like that it's come full circle because now your students answer you with, well, art is subjective, Ronald. And
Yeah.
you try to tell them something.
Yeah, you know what I say back?
No.
You failed.
That's what she told you.
Yeah, I know, I failed that class.
You know what's hilarious about teaching is the fact that all of us in our own separate ways are very anti-establishment.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I hated school. Like I actively went out of my way to avoid school,
Yeah.
and it was just because
I dropped out of school.
Yeah, there you go. It's just I hate the way the system is structured, and it's a way that like it always tries to like piece you into like a
Yeah.
corner.
Right.
So the fact that we all ended up in a school system is just if there isn't like any grand plan for all of us, then the universe just has its own really funny sense of humor.
Yeah, you know what it is, man? The thing is that, like, just like Kevin, like, I hated my teachers, especially in college. Like, all of my art college professors were just like these miserable people who had awful opinions and were just very aggressive and would get angry if you don't make art their way. And it was just so, it was such an awful experience as an artist, wanting to like create something new and them telling you like, that's not how that works, you don't do it this way, this is wrong. So when I left school, I was like, I don't care about school, like I don't ever want to do this again. But seeing students nowadays not being taught the way they should be taught kind of hurt me, because I was like, man, I could do better for them. I can give them what I wasn't given myself. So I think what's good is we didn't, all three of us, didn't go just from like college to teaching. We went from college to filmmaking, failing extremely hard at filmmaking, succeeding at filmmaking, and then becoming teachers. That way we have like these stories to tell our kids and teach them through our mistakes. So I take so much pride in walking into a classroom and giving these students what I didn't have when I was in college.
Yeah.
And I see them. I see them creating better films than I was creating at that age. And I see them being more confident with themselves than I was at that age. And it makes me so happy to see that progress. But it also makes me slightly jealous because I'm like, I wish I had a teacher like me when I was young.
Oh my god, me too.
Yeah.
Aren't we all great?
I know. We're all
Aren't
so
we the
good.
best?
You know, it's funny because I don't know any working artists who don't teach.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know.
Like
any
people
at
that
some
actually
capacity
do
or
it,
another.
yeah.
Different.
The working professionally part, I think, is the reason why I have validity with my students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's this
Yeah.
like, I respect education a lot because I don't have one. So like, I have a great deal of respect for that. But
When you say you dropped out of high school?
I dropped out of college.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. So
You go.
I think people who left college, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think we have like a very deep respect for like formal education.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so like because of
It's
that,
terrifying to not have it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because of that, I think what ends up happening with my students is I'll tell them like, okay, here's some ideas to fuck with. And when they challenge me back, it's welcome because I was that challenge at one point.
Yeah.
And then what shifts in your mindset essentially is they challenge you back, and the only way that I know how to teach is storytelling. So it's like, okay, here's why your idea doesn't work. One time and then you insert whatever it is that's happening that's relevant to the moment. And when you have receipts for that, when you can sit there and be like, here's the failed venture. I will show you what it looked like when I made these mistakes.
And also being like, I'm still making these mistakes.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, the fact that like we are working artists, the fact that we are like, we're out here getting grants, we're out here making work. I think that a lot of our students, the difference between like the teachers that you had, Eddie, and the teachers that we are, is that the teachers that you had were going home and sitting on a couch.
They were.
Yeah, and
they were.
being a working artist and putting in those hours and sitting here with you at 9 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
it brings with it a certain level of validity that the students, I think, it translates to them.
Yeah.
I agree.
So talk a little bit about White Elephant. Like, how did that? We've talked about how there have been failed ventures. How did it become this? You graduated high school. Did you guys separate? Did you guys
Kind
like?
of,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the natural course of life. How did you guys come back together? Because as
It's
long
a
as I've
great
known you, I've
question.
known you guys for
Together.
like 5 years
Yeah.
all together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I went straight from high school to film school. Well, no, me and Ronald moved to Tallahassee together.
There was that one year.
Yeah.
There was that. There was
We
that.
left high school,
was
me and
a
Ronald
thing.
moved to
Yeah.
Tallahassee. My goal was to go to film school in Tallahassee because FSU was one of the biggest film schools in the United States.
right.
I want to go to music
And
school.
Ronald wanted to study music.
Oh.
And because he was still doing this band idea. And I had kind of like left the band idea behind.
That was heartbreaking.
And I
at the
think
time.
it was like a breaking point in our relationship at that point because he was so passionate about the music and I wasn't, and I dropped it like a hot potato because film was my new passion. As an artist, because I think I'm just an artist, period, I've always wanted to express myself. And in high school I found expression through music. But once someone gave me a camera and an editing software and said you can shoot something and edit it, I was like,
Yeah.
What happened in Boston for you?
So at one point I came back from Tallahassee having failed at that particular endeavor. And I just wasn't sure what to do, and I didn't want to move to New York because I feel like New York is, what's that old song by Kimmy Dawson? She says, New York is a graveyard.
Yeah.
So I really didn't want to do that.
Especially so young.
Yeah.
Too, like.
And so I was like, I don't want to go be like a struggling musician in New York. And I read one day that Joan Baez and Bob Dylan actually got their start in Cambridge.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, maybe there's something there. I should go check that out. So I left to Boston, and I don't think I've ever been that poor. Like I think
he was
I
poor.
think that was the point. I lived in
You were living in a slum.
Yeah, I lived in a slum for like a year and a half, and I didn't have a closet for the first 2.5 years. I lived out of a suitcase, and I ran from landlords, and I had to make decisions between like food and medicine and shit. And then I had this racket going with Uno's Pizzeria. I did.
The most exploited pizzeria.
Uno's, so up north, if you're not from up north, if you've never been up north, there's this thing called Uno's Pizzeria. It's like a Chicago style pizzeria. Yeah.
Deep dish.
And so I worked there for a little while, and I found out that if you sign up for the little club card membership shit, which is free, on your birthday they send you a coupon for a free entree.
How many birthdays did you have?
Okay, so let me explain. There were 5 different Unos in the area.
Yeah.
So I had a birthday 3 times a week for about 2 years.
3 times a week for 2 years doing
Yeah.
Uno's Pizza?
Because my thing was all I needed
Was an email?
was an email.
That's it.
And then
I mean, I've done that for coupons.
Yeah.
no, I did this,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to be a dick to my server.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I need $5 to not be a dick to my server, because I can't afford. Like, to me at the time, $5 was like the difference between me walking from Cambridge to Alston, which is like a 4-hour walk, and taking a train.
No.
So I was like,
No.
I'll go ahead and I'll drop these $5 and I'll just walk, so that I feel like it's like penance almost.
Yeah.
And then I figured if I did 3 a week, then I could take 3 of the 5 Unos and just kind of fuck around, and then be super quiet and just read my book in the corner, and no one would remember me until this really cute server this one time. And then I had to stop the racket because I decided to go on a date with this one girl. And I was
It's always a girl.
yeah.
It's always a girl.
But did you get the date with the girl?
I did.
Oh.
Actually,
What?
that story ends really beautifully, but very sad for me.
But now you have to hear.
Yeah.
What's the story?
So we go on like 5 dates, and I'm like falling in love with this woman. Like,
With the girl from Uno.
Yeah.
In 5 days.
The Uno waitress.
Uno
Yeah.
waitress.
So here's what happened. I wrote her this note that said, "Hey, thanks for talking to me," because I didn't have any friends. So I wrote like,
So romantic.
I wrote this note on her receipt, being like, "Hey, thanks for talking to me. I haven't actually heard someone address me all day," and I wrote like I really appreciate it. It made my day better. And about 2 weeks later, le toca da Unos.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk in.
In the racket.
In the racket, yeah.
The
Like,
racket,
in
He
the
went
way
down
that works, 2 weeks later, it's that Unos' time. And so I go to the Unos and I ask for a table, the way I always do, and then she just runs towards me. And she goes, "Sit in my section right now."
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
And I was like,
hello.
I didn't really remember her too well because I spent most of my time just reading books and shit. When I dropped out of college, I read everything I get my hands on because I felt stupid. So I just started reading like crazy, and I would just sit there reading books and stuff. So she sat me down at her table, and then she pulled out the receipt with the note, and she said to me,
It's a movie, bro.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, where's that movie?
Wow.
she was like, "This was the best thing anyone's ever told me at this restaurant." And she goes, "I want to know what you're doing at 10:30 tonight."
Oh, she asked you out. That's
Yeah.
progressive as fuck.
And I was like, "I am doing whatever you tell me to." She was like, "Okay, meet me in front of Uno's at 10:30." And I was like, "Okay." So I went to the Boston Public Library and just read there until 10:30, and then came back. And then we spent like 5 or 6 weeks just going on these really cute dates, and I was so poor, so I had to figure out like creative ways to go on a date.
Yeah.
So
Those are always the best.
Those are the
though.
best.
They're the
Yeah.
I'm sure one of them was like, "Have you ever been to the Unos?"
well, like we did things like, for example, I went to a local university. I went to Emerson University, and just waited for someone to put their materials down somewhere, their art materials, and then I stole a big sheet, and I stole a big sheet and a handful of paints, and I was like, "This is mine," and just dipped, and then we went finger painting in the park.
Wow.
Yeah. There was another one.
She obviously didn't know what you went through.
Because I just didn't. I'm talking about like my average checking account balance was like $7.50. Like I was really, really broke. And then we did one date where there's this really expensive street called Newbury Street, and I worked at a cafe that had a branch there, or whatever, like a little location there. So I went into the cafe and I got like the big teas, and it was a little bit cold, but not really cold. It was like November or something outside, and I was like, "Let's go down the street." Now here was my plan. To walk from one end of Newbury to the other takes about 3 hours. So I was like, if I start this date around 10:30, by the time we finish the walk, she'll be too tired to ask to go get something to eat or something, and I won't look like I'm broke as fuck.
Wow.
Actually, what ended up happening is we had a really, really good time.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I
would have still been hungry.
That was like, nah, dog, you better
It was
feed
really
me.
cute, and it was like, you know, like you're like falling for each other. Like I'm showing her like old French movies, and she's showing me American Psycho, and I'm pretending to not have watched it. Yeah, like she's trying to show me movies and shit, and I'm sitting there like, who's Woody Allen? Like it's
Never heard of him.
And then I come to Miami for like 2 weeks to see friends. I get back to Boston, and I call her, and she just stops picking up.
Oh.
No.
So about 2 weeks later, she calls me and she goes, I don't know how to say this. And I was like, what? She's like, well, while you were gone, my ex-boyfriend, the love of my life, actually drove from Pennsylvania to Boston and surprised me and told me that he couldn't do it anymore and that he wants to be married to me and he's not leaving until I say yes. And I was like, and what did you say? And she was like, I said yes. And I was like, that is the most beautiful, heartbreaking thing I've ever heard. And she was like, yeah, she was like, are you angry? And I was like, I'm not angry at all. That is fucking beautiful. I was like, so you're gonna get married? And I was like, yeah. She was like, yeah. And I was like,
did she get married?
She did. And
Are they still together?
I don't know.
Oh.
Wow.
What's
Yeah.
your Facebook name? I'm just
No, I actually don't remember her name anymore. I just think of her as the waitress.
Wow.
And so like,
I can't believe you must have written a screenplay about it.
I didn't. Never
That's
did.
the next one.
Yeah.
That's the next script.
That's the waitress. The waitress broke my heart in the most beautiful way.
It's so
The movie's gonna be called Finger Painting in the Park.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We'll make the whole thing in French.
Absolutely.
Now I'm just curious if that went on, like, would she have eventually caught on that you were like broke as fuck, and like maybe it would have ended tragically?
I
where she just
definitely-
dumps your ass?
I wasn't thinking ahead. It was literally like, there was like maybe 2 hours after one of our dates that I got home and I saw the landlord and just ran.
Right away.
Yeah. Like, I don't
Maybe
think it would have worked out in the long run, seeing as
No,
I was
once
like
again, just ask
uber
for,
poor.
But that's what makes the story so beautiful. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
it's just
what
like,
it-
yeah.
But you didn't. At one point, you were like, maybe I should ask her for a job at Uno's.
No, I had been technically allowed to leave on medical leave because one day I woke up and went to Uno's and I was in such a bad fucking mood that I told them that I had been diagnosed earlier that day with Huntington's disease.
Oh, I remember that.
What is Huntington's?
Okay, so at the time, you remember House?
Yes.
Okay, the show House.
Yeah.
So, one of the characters on House has Huntington's, which is
I
this,
can't even
this
look at you.
which is this
What is that?
degenerative mental a brain disorder, it's a neurological disorder, and it essentially it kills you over time. And so I was in such a bad mood, and I really didn't want to work that day, and I was like really pissed off. It was raining, whatever. I walk in, and I was like, I need to talk to a manager. And he was like, "What's up, man? What's going on?" He's like, "You're like an hour late." And I was like, "I was diagnosed with Huntington's chorea." And he was like, "What does this mean?" I was like, "I'm gonna die before I'm 30." And he was like, I was 21.
Wow.
And he was like just starts crying. He just starts crying and he just hugs me and he's like, "You can cry, Ron. You can cry."
You can cry.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I did a lot of crying on the way over here, so I'm kind of crying out." And then he was like, "So what do you want? Do you want me to talk to Uno's people about maybe getting you a job at corporate? Maybe we could do that." And I was like, "No."
Oh my God! What a nice human.
No, this dude, his name was David something. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life.
And you played him.
And I played him.
You're going to hell.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was going to hell way before that. But yeah, that's definitely like, if I see St. Peter, he's gonna be like, "What's up, Korea? Fucking Huntington's, get the fuck out of here." And so he actually offered me to get a job at corporate so that I wouldn't have to stand for long hours.
Wow.
And I was like, "No, I think I just need to go dedicate myself to finding my life before I die." Because at this point, I was all in already. Like, I had already I had already made the choice that I'm playing this character.
You just didn't want to. You just didn't want to go to work.
I didn't want to go to work that day. Yeah. So technically, I couldn't work at Uno's because I had been allowed to leave on medical leave because of a Huntington's chorea diagnosis.
You should have just been like, but I need a free meal.
But for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I think I'm done with stories.
What was the question?
How did we get to?
I don't know.
How did you get
To White Elephant?
To White Elephant. So Kevin,
It's a long.
what did you do after high school?
I need someone to rein me in.
This is gonna be like a 3-part. It's great. I was worried I haven't had enough material. Now it's like we're gonna split this into 3.
You sit in a room with like 3 filmmakers, you're fine. Yeah. Well, what's funny is like after high school, like they went their own way and I went like this like complete opposite tangent. So just like then when we graduated, I was like, I want to make movies. I want to be a filmmaker, and I actually got accepted into NYU. And when I got into NYU and I got the tour, I was like, this is gorgeous. This is amazing. And then they sat me down. They're like, and this is how much it's gonna cost.
That's why I didn't go.
And then I get that piece of paper and I go, hey, yeah, I think FIU is better. FIU offered me money to go to school because I had so many like BS things like tallied up. They were like, we'll give you $800 a semester, and like out of high school, you're like $800. That's like $1 million. And so I did that.
Those were the days where we think.
Yeah, right. So at the time, this is less funny than Ronald's. It's actually way more tragic.
Yeah.
At the time, my mother had not been doing too well, so she was like diabetic, and she started having a lot of complications and stuff. So like it also informed my decision to stay in Miami. So as they were off doing their own things, I was here at FIU doing English and writing degree, and then at one point I started just doing like random films on the side, like small things here and there. But I did a lot of writing, and when I was writing at FIU, one of the funniest things was I had a playwright class, and the instructor took my play, produced it, and had the play performed at FIU, and told me the day before production, like he started, he goes, hey, by the way, your thing's in play, we're producing it. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, we spent the past like 3 months working on it.
Wow.
And I was like, did I give you permission? I was like, did I ever give you
Where's my
permission?
rights money?
Yeah.
I mean, I showed up, and I was like, I mean, they did it well, but I was like, what the fuck's going on? But then, after that, I was like, all right, well, I mean, I guess it validated like my decisions, I guess. So then after the fact, I couldn't find work. Like I literally couldn't find a job because like the recession hit so hard, and like I was working retail at like a Hot Topic, which wasn't.
That's not funny. Sorry.
No, it is. Trust me.
Dad is laughing so hard at the word Hot Topic.
Yeah.
That's her breaking point.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, the problem with that job, A, it was in Dolphin Mall. B, it was like a hellscape. Working in that mall, I don't know if you were working in that mall, it's a fucking hellscape. more so than I think any other mall, because the fact is that mall is like a hub for international
Tourists.
tourists.
Yeah.
That's all it is. They come in, they buy shit, and they take it, right?
They all
They
want
come
shit
with their
from
like.
Hot
They go with their suitcases.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I thought I was immune to that. I was like, yo, Hot Topic, no one's gonna buy this
Yeah.
shit. Like, no,
Everybody.
I was wrong as hell. Thankfully, that job, actually, all the managers and most of the people that worked there were friends of mine, some of which from high school. So it was mostly just eating crap there. But the problem that I faced with that job is it ate a lot of my free time, because retail environment, like any free time, it's just your weekends are gone, your evenings are gone.
Yeah.
So I couldn't work on film. So I like started getting like crazy depressed. And then once I graduated college, I was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna do this. I'll figure something out. And I did like the most out of left field thing that like I would have never thought in a million years I would do, is that I got a real estate license.
Whoa.
I literally went and I just got a real estate license. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna figure this out and I'll do it. So while they're doing all their stuff, Eddie was in film school, Ronald was in Boston.
Ron was poor.
Yeah, Ronald was poor as fuck. I went and I got a real estate license and I started doing real estate. And I was able to save up a little bit, because as much as I hate real estate, I was a pretty decent realtor. And at one point, they post something online saying, oh, we're trying to make a movie.
They as in Eddie.
Ronald and Eddie. And they go, hey, we're trying to make a movie. And I was like, I've been wanting to make a movie for fucking ever, so let's do it. So I contacted Eddie and Ronald and I told them, hey, I'll back your movie. I have some money so we can start working on this movie. And the movie was, at the time, Future 86.
Oh,
It took.
I was in that movie.
Yeah,
We're in that movie. Hey.
I think it took 5 years for you to see a return.
Yeah,
But the return came, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
5 years of investment.
I'm gonna be
That's
honest,
normal.
not the best investment.
No,
Yeah.
but look at
The
us
dividends
now.
were pretty tight.
But let me tell you, there was a point where on Ronald and mine's end, it was literally me and Ronald were like bartending at downtown Miami
Bubba
for
Shrimp.
Bubba Gum Shrimp, baby.
Bubba Gum
Fucking-
Shrimp.
My life for 8 years. So we were bartending for 8 years. We were miserable.
You too, Ron?
Yeah.
Where
together.
Bubba?
We were
Mhm.
both of those. I got
And then I got fired and I had moved to
You take it
the
from-
Hard Rock.
Hard Rock Cafe
Yeah.
in the same
When it was
vicinity, Bayside.
when it was still Hard Rock.
Yeah.
Bayside.
So
What is it
how-
now?
It's like nothing.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah,
There's nothing there
There's
anymore?
nothing there at where the Hard Rock was.
Really?
I could be
Wait a
wrong.
minute.
I didn't know
is
that.
the Warner Brothers store still there?
Yeah.
I used to love that store.
Yeah.
Now it's a Nike
Yeah.
store or something.
So
What's-
we were bartending and we were miserable. I mean, every day we would leave work at like 3 or 4 in the morning being like, why are we doing this and not creating art? And it came to this point where, and I think this was like a pivotal point in our careers, was I told Ronald, I was like, we just need to make something. I don't care what it is, we just need to film something now. And it needs to be a feature. Because at this point I was thinking to myself that like short films are stupid. Features are the only thing that we can possibly do.
Which is
And
interesting because
which
that
is
became a short film.
It did become a short film. And Ronald
That did
was
really
like,
well.
let's do it. Let's make a feature film. And the problem is that we didn't have the money. And at this point, we
That
were
wasn't the
hungry.
problem.
We were hungry. We were so hungry that we did all kinds of crazy fucking marketing. That Kevin helped us get on fucking radio stations. And we did like street canvassing. We went on the expressway and put up signs in the expressway to
Mhm.
collect money. And we raised, I was a producer in the film and I wanted to raise 50 grand. And we ended up raising 7 grand, which was not anywhere near 50.
Mhm.
And that's when Kevin called us and was like, hey, I'm a realtor now, I have some money, I want to help you guys. And I remember we sat down at Moe's.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I
that's where we
remember
had our
that.
business meeting was Moe's.
Most business dealings are in
Yes.
Rosebud.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Classy.
So I told him, I was like, Kevin, because I love you, don't invest in this movie. And he was like, no, I want to. And I was like, Kevin, listen, I love you.
We both were
Don't
like,
invest in
do
this
not
movie.
invest in this film.
And Kevin was this hardhead who was like, stop telling me no. We're gonna make this movie. I don't care. And he threw in some money, and the rest of the money, I did some deals with some shady.
Be
people.
real, you did some santeria.
I did some santeria. Let me just tell you, man. I called everyone I knew, and I was like, hey, what do you have that I can trade for money, or I can trade for equipment, or I can trade for locations? And we ended up getting the budget we needed.
Wow. Wow.
And we shot a feature film
10 days.
in 10 days, which is unheard of.
Really?
You
It was.
don't-
I don't even remember.
10
It was
days.
10 days.
You do not shoot a feature
Shut
film
up.
in 10 days. Because we were shooting 5 scenes a
Shooting
day.
100 pages in 10 days. It was 10
100 pages
pages
in
a
10
day.
days. 5 scenes a day. I mean, on the last movie we did together, we did like 2 scenes a day. And how exhausted were you after that?
I mean, I had to learn how to ride a bike, so that's.
Yeah.
Which, let me
Fair.
tell
Learn how to
you.
ride a bike.
Let me tell you, I was like watching it and I was
Yeah.
like, "Whew, you can tell I'm really
No!
uncomfortable."
I don't think anyone's made that comment to me who's
No,
watching.
not a
this.
single person.
No
Oh,
one has said that.
thank
Everyone's
God.
like, that scene on the bikes was so cute.
Oh,
Mhm.
thank God.
Yes.
Because I'm
Nobody
like,
can
"Ugh." Actually, someone said it. I think it was my boyfriend. He was like, you're going off to the side there.
Yeah.
Like, it was my first day. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so
Flat.
funny.
That's
we,
funny.
yeah, we shot this, and we ended up doing it. We did it. We shot the whole feature,
Yeah.
and it was too much, so it didn't come out well, and the feature was pretty crappy.
We just didn't know what we were doing.
We didn't know what we were doing.
That was basically film school for me.
that was
Yeah.
film school. So you didn't go to film school,
No.
and I did, but you learned by doing,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is such an exciting thing.
And that was the same thing. Like, I didn't go to film school either.
Yeah.
Like, I straight up, like, just started doing it. And that's, like, one of the things that it resonates with me the most. Where, like, we have friends with comics, we have friends that are, painters, that are musicians. And they all have the same response for every person who wants to do it. And they say,
Just do it.
if someone comes up to me and asks me, how do I become an artist? How do I become a painter? How do I become a musician? Or they say, I'm thinking about doing this, it's not for them. If they come and they say, hey, I'm an artist or I'm a musician, I'm a painter, here's what I have, even if it's shit,
Yeah,
they're already an artist, a painter, a musician, a filmmaker.
Absolutely.
They are already there.
absolutely. That's the first step. It's just
Yeah.
doing it.
Just do
Just
it.
doing
Just
it and
doing it.
figuring it out.
Yeah.
Just,
Doesn't matter how good, how bad it is,
Yeah.
as long as you start doing it, that is what you are.
I agree.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that a problem is that so many young artists see people like us, like all of us in this room, even Diana, and they're like, man, I want to be at the point where they are. I want to be where Diana is in her acting, or I want to be where Kevin is in his producing.
Can't get here
You
without
can't
running
get
from
to without
landlords,
doing it
man.
first.
Yeah.
Can't get
Not
here.
running
You
from
gotta,
You gotta build those
you gotta,
legs.
you gotta
Yeah.
do what I did to
You have
be
to
me.
do it.
Yeah, like you
You
gotta,
have to do it.
you gotta go out
You
there.
just
and
gotta, like, you just have to.
Just do it.
gotta
yeah.
run from those landlords,
People-
bro.
One of the biggest things that like has stuck with me this year actually was something you told me, Eddie. Was I said something. I was like, oh, whatever, I'll figure it out. And you were like, that's how I identify you.
Yeah.
It's the phrase, I'll figure it
I'll
out.
figure it
And
out.
Mhm.
and I started cracking up, and I was like, well, I have no other choice but to figure it out, you know? And like I think that's so important, to just do it. And I think
Yeah.
that for any career in the arts, it's just like, just do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's
Nike
interesting
that
because
shit up.
I feel like you come off to everyone else in the world as so fearless. Like you literally said all the time, I'm just gonna do it, or I'll figure it out, or I'm gonna chase my dream no matter what. So to everyone else, you're like, you're this crazy badass actress that can do anything.
Oh, you're talking about me?
Yes.
Oh shit.
Because
Okay.
you're constantly saying, yeah, I'll do that, or I'll figure this out, or I'll travel the world on a boat acting for however long, and I've never done that before. You're saying yes to all these crazy things, and I feel like to us, you're this fearless, like goddess warrior of
Oh my god.
acting.
Shut
But
up.
what is it on your end? On your end, are
Oh,
you
I'm
as confident as
terrified.
you come off, or are you terrified?
Hell no.
Okay.
I'm like so scared all the
Yeah.
time.
I've
And I think that comes from like not first of all, not having a college degree is
Yeah.
terrifying because I'm always like scrambling. I'm still a broke person all the time, even if I'm like, also like social media is such a farce.
Yeah.
It all comes down to just fake it till you make it kind of thing, and just pretending that like everything is okay, and just being like,
Yeah.
fuck it, I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna just like do it, because at the end of the day, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have to lose? Yeah, I go on a ship and I like, have to leave, and I have to sacrifice a bunch of stuff, but guess what? Like, I came back a whole new person, and like
Yeah.
I learned so much, and I think that that's the biggest thing about art, is just like taking that leap,
Yeah.
It's like the podcast.
Yeah, I think that the thing I try to communicate to my students, and I don't know if they understand it or not, but I try to communicate to them that they really need to stop thinking about the results and start thinking about the journey.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, like, because they're constantly like, oh man, I want to get into a festival. I want to sell a script. I want to, and then the more experience I get, and the more like wonderful things that happen to me just from like sheer luck or being surrounded by people who are smarter, better than I am, the more I realize that those ends are just terribly, like not terribly valid, and that I enjoy making the film or writing the script more than I enjoy getting the award or screening at the festival.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I think that when you learn to love what you're doing and not why you're doing it, the why you're doing it aspect of things just kind of comes on its own.
Right.
I wish I knew that when I was younger, because I feel like when I was younger, I was so scared of making art, because I was like, what if I make something and then it's bad? Or what if I make something and no one likes it? Or what if I make something and it's not as good as I thought it would be? And I never realized that what if I make something and I have fun was a more important question.
You know
Yeah.
what's interesting
Yeah.
about that thought?
No.
When you're a student, one of the things you don't see on the keyboard is the backspace.
Yeah.
You think that everything you write is being like carved into stone,
Yeah.
and like it's really hard for me to convince my screenwriting students like, dude, just highlight and backspace it.
Yeah. And
Like
you-
no
get
one
rid of
needs to know. Yeah, just get rid of it. And so it's interesting because I think that every young student I've ever met, every young filmmaker I've ever met, has the same idea. Yo, we're gonna get this Oscar. I've even as a young student,
Yeah.
which I never went to film school, but I was a student at one point. And then after dropping out, I think it's just I had so many things in my life I was dealing with. It never occurred to me to want an Oscar.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not something that ever like it never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me to win an award at a film festival or anything like that. And so by the time that I actually understood those concepts and why people want them, I had already dug myself into my room, having no money to have fun, lost myself in screenwriting,
Yeah.
and then just dedicated myself to writing a stupid amount of feature length and like short screenplays. And so it's like now I get paid to teach things that I used to do to cope with life. And so it's an interesting thing if you learn to love what you do, you really there's just no chance of failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And what's interesting though about that is because I've seen you teach and I've seen just through life other people teach, and I feel like the main difference is between someone who's lived through that experience and someone who's just kind of reacted to outside stimuli. It's like, oh, this is how this is done, so I will do this way. Is it resonates more with people when you talk to them, because I can tell you how something's done, but
What do you teach, Kevin?
I teach a lot of camera work,
Okay.
and then I teach film theory to acting students. And the thing is with acting students, and they don't come from a film background at all, right?
Mhm.
So when you explain things to them, if you explain it through a personal experience or a personal anecdote, it resonates more. Because it's now no longer a binary thing you're explaining to them. What you're explaining to them is how some outside stimuli made you feel, and it's being interpreted through you. And I feel like that informs storytelling.
Oh yeah.
And whether you're an actor or a filmmaker, you're at the end of the day you're all storytellers. So that disconnect that people feel when you try to explain to someone what filmmaking is through like this ones and zeros, oh, filmmaking is this, and this, doesn't resonate as much as saying what filmmaking is to you or what acting is to you on a personal level, because at that point when you're explaining it to people, they can have that emotional connection that you share with that experience, and it's a very unique experience to each person. Like with Ronald, Eddie, and I each explain what filmmaking is to each of us, you're going to get a completely different answer.
Yeah.
Right. That's so interesting that you bring that up, because I definitely felt that with Postcard to Nina recently. It was just like the way that you guys interpreted it really informed me as an actor. So let's go into that. Let's talk about A Postcard to Nina. So like, how did that come about? So just to recap, Future 86, which was the first movie that basically brought you guys back together.
Yeah.
And the birthing of White Elephant.
The birthing of White Elephant.
Actually took it from the name of the collective comes from a giant white elephant that Hans, our production designer, had painted in the house where the main characters live.
I remember that. Yes,
Yeah,
I remember
that's
that.
where
I
it
went
comes
to
from.
that house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So recapping, Future 86 did it really quickly, but then became a short film called Scenes from Our Young Marriage and got awards and did really, really well.
Yes, it did really well.
Yeah.
Really, really well.
And it only took 4 years.
It took 4 years. It was a 4-year process.
But that's
Nobody
also
shot it,
one of
so
those things that it's just like, it takes patience and it takes dedication and it takes love to do that, and like I think that's something that people don't realize is a lot of these projects, a lot of these movies that actually do really well and don't get enough recognition, it's all done with love.
Yeah, it is.
Love,
absolutely.
So that's interesting. We're gonna go over an hour, just so you guys know. So.
I mean, I'm just enjoying being here.
Okay, cool. Me too. If you guys have to go, it's all good.
No, I don't.
But yeah, so okay, so A Postcard to Nina has been the most recent one you guys have done, right? So talk about how that came into fruition, because that was a really interesting concept in everything, like the way it was filmed, just even like language, all of it is like such a interesting concept. And I think something that I really enjoyed about being a part of the production, felt really lucky to be part of the production, was the artistry of how it was presented, kind of thing. So how did that come about?
That started off as a screen test.
Yeah.
So here's the problem. The last the short that we did, actually no, just use Scenes. Scenes was an 18-minute trailer for Future.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's the problem. I don't know how to tell. I don't know how to not tell a story. And so we have this script. We're actually pre-pro for it now. Named it's the script titled "The Boy Named Sue," and in that script we wanted to do it in a 1:1 aspect ratio. And so I had told Kevin Barry, the cinematographer on Nina, we have to test this 1:1 and see if it works. And he was like, "Well, just write a quick scene, and we'll shoot the scene to just do a screen test." So I wrote Nina, and I was like,
Jesus.
"It's a little long," but and then I had this idea because it was a screen test, and I have a habit of being like, "What's the weirdest thing I can do?" I have a habit of just being like, "How can I make this different from anything I've ever seen?" And I really want to. Just it's in my nature to innovate. I want to innovate all the time. And so I was like, what if we had a screenplay, or rather a film, where the actors communicated and they never actually said any words, and we just created subtitles for them communicating non-verbally, almost like this kind of telepathic expression. And then I was like, oh, it's so cool because it'll force the actors to have these really complicated problems, and I have to deal with the actors, and we have to use rehearsal time to find how do we communicate complex ideas through nonverbal means. And I brought that to Eddie, who's essentially my sanity soundboard. And I'm like, what do you think? And Eddie's like, that's fucking crazy.
Yes, and.
Yeah.
And perfect example of yes and.
Yeah, and so the beauty of our collective is, the deeper you go into our collective, the more insanity you find. Where at the heart of our collective, there's a computer programmer, a filmmaker, and a photographer talking about how they're gonna make a VR project.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get out, you have these beautiful soundboards, and Kevin and Eddie and Deep, and all these people that we work with, who are essentially like, we throw things at them, and then they throw things back, and they're like, okay, so here's, I took the crazy out of what you said, and then like, and so Barry's, well, we were all kind of meeting, and I had this telepathy idea, and Barry's was like, what if we used verbal language, but we used completely different verbal languages, and then that way the concept of communication, like the abstract of communication, can be expressed. And I was like, yeah, I just really, at the time, this was before I got divorced, that changed, but at the time, I really wanted to make a story about how the only limitation to communication is love, and how like when a person, like a volunteer in like Haiti after the earthquake, sees a crying child, they don't wonder if the child will understand their English. They just pick the child up. You know, like, and so because of that, I was like, I really do think, and I sincerely do think still, that the only real communicative barrier that we have as human beings is a desire to communicate, just a willingness to want to understand the other person.
Yeah.
And so Mina came from that.
You guys had a really specific style to doing that,
Yeah.
which I thought, as an actor, was really interesting. Like you were basically like, I'm taking camera shots from you,
Yeah.
which is never the case.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? And Eddie, like, how did?
I think it was a lot of, maybe, this is what I see on my end, there's a lot of fighting on my end. And I think it comes down to like, I've been trained in this very, maybe the word is archaic, and this very archaic means of what is filmmaking. You have a camera, it's supposed to be set up this way, you have this kind of lighting set up, you have actors presenting their lines in this way. And then Ronald comes at me and says, we're gonna shoot this movie on a cell phone and our actors are gonna like just be alive and all speaking different languages to each other, and we're gonna crop the screen literally in half, so you don't see half of the image. And I was like, Ronald, please.
Sounds dope though, right?
Wait till you see the movie. It's great. It's beautiful. Like, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful now.
Come at me,
Well,
bro.
I mean, one of the first, I think it was just like read-throughs we had. Eddie comes up to me. He's like, "So how do you feel about this? About this shooting on a phone? Is that like? How do you feel about that?" And I was like, I mean, that sounds cool to me.
Well, what's funny about it is that we have both had and continue to have access to some of the best camera equipment known to man.
$100,000 cameras at our disposal, and this man wants to shoot on a Samsung.
Because it doesn't mean anything if it doesn't mean anything.
But it looks pretty though.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
I know.
I don't give a shit if something looks nice. I give a shit what it means.
Wow.
And so like that's my issue, is that like if you're gonna make art, make meaningful art, and if you're gonna make kitsch, make shitty kitsch, but don't make kitsch and sell me art.
Yeah.
Like no, you made something shitty and you called it whatever the fuck under a pretty umbrella, and you sold it at the burrito store. I don't give a fuck about that. That's fine because it's at the burrito store.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna make something shitty, don't tell me it has meaning because it's pretty. And I just don't derive beauty from aesthetics. Even though beauty can be derived from aesthetics, but in my opinion, as an artist, it's only derived from aesthetics as to which I invest and communicate with it. But if something is just pretty, it's just pretty. It's like I'm straight and I'm a man, so it's like women.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just pretty, you're not enough.
Yeah.
You need to be beautiful. And that requires a lot more than looks. And so I don't give a shit about the camera we use. I just wanted to use something meaningful. Even though it was a lot harder than it should have been.
Yeah, this was supposed to be just a one scene test shoot.
Yeah.
Here we are, like almost a year later.
Yeah.
It's like 6, 7, 8 months later, and we're finally with the film.
It came out a lot better than we thought it would.
It really did.
It came out beautifully. I mean, we got some great responses from it. And
So as far as language, why did you choose? So the film is spoken in English,
Spanish,
Spanish,
and Haitian Creole.
Haitian Creole,
Yeah.
and subtitles.
Yeah, so there's 2 sets of subtitles, which was fun. And the film was based on lyrics from a song by Jans Leekman that my ex-wife really loved. And so in the song, it's a simple thing. This guy goes to Berlin to meet his pen pal for the first time, and she just tells him, like, hey, do you want to hang out with my dad? He's like, sure. And then she's like, okay, by the way, you're my boyfriend. And so my thing is listening to Jans Leekman tell me the story. It's a sweet story, but Jans Leekman grew up in Sweden. The story happened in Berlin. I've never fucking been to Europe. I grew up poor in Miami. So, like, from my perspective, if I was gonna tell that story would be told in 3 languages because that's what I grew up with, and that's my reality, and that's what I know. I grew up in a place where you can eat food from 5 countries and speak 3 languages, and that's called Tuesday. So from that perspective, we wanted to get into the concept of communication, and it just made sense to use language to be able to communicate that. And also just where we're from, I feel a kinship too. And so whereas when I was younger, I escaped to Tallahassee, I escaped to Boston, as I've gotten older, I just feel home here.
Right.
And I wanted to make a story that was relevant to us and not just relevant to some songwriter or some great, really brilliant songwriter, because this guy's really good, but relevant to a Swedish songwriter that didn't resonate with me. So I made a story about a Cuban American girl with a Cuban dad and a Haitian friend, and that's what life feels like for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful film, and like just the way that it came about on my lap was just so, like, I loved it. I mean, I read it and I was like, this is amazing. And then to be able to finally see it, when will people be able to actually see it?
So it looks like
Very soon.
yeah, we're good. We're definitely gonna have like a friends and family screening
Cool.
and like a crew cast and all that good shit, so that we can just be. I think one of the beautiful things about working at Collective is that you genuinely love the people you work with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like us, it's just an excuse for us to hang out. But
As a part to being like together every day.
yeah,
At the place you work.
yeah. But it's really looking like the film has garnered a lot of programmer support from some really top tier festivals, both around the country and internationally.
Nice.
So it's looking like we might make our premiere. I can't say where just because of details, but like it's looking like we might make our premiere in North America in September.
Nice.
Yeah, and then we might move from there and maybe hit the west end of the United States in January, in some really, really swanky little festivals that seem to like us. Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna be out of our element.
Yeah. Well, it's like a bunch of broke kids from Miami.
Here comes all the trash candlelights.
Yeah, but
That's
it's-
awesome.
Yeah, your face will grace some very prestigious screens, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's next for you guys?
Well, shit.
We have we're working on 2 films right now.
Yeah, we anticipate this question.
Literally, we have 2 films that we're working on right now at the same time,
Yeah.
which is something that I'm not sure if it's good or bad. I
I'm
think
still
that
trying to figure out
Yeah.
whether it's good or bad.
because I feel like what happens is we succeed at something, so we're like, well, we did that. Why don't we do 2 of those at the same time? Because we already did one.
My thing is, I hate when you guys go home, so I'm just trying to find excuses to keep you guys around.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's really it. I'm just writing screenplays being like, ha, now you have to stay for a production meeting.
Now
So-
we're friends.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things though that the collective is working on. We have 2 narrative films
Okay.
that we're
Yeah.
working on that we're shooting within the next 2 months,
Yeah.
and hope to be editing while we're working on the different premieres of A Postcard to Nina around the world. 'cause
It looks like what's going to happen is we're going to go into post-production on one film while we go into production on another while we do a festival run for a
for
third.
another one,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, at this point, it's
That's
looking
solid.
like A Postcard to Nina is going to be running festivals for almost a year.
Yeah.
It'll be
Not
18
a
months.
year plus.
Yeah.
Because we have some festivals that aren't lined up until next January.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then after that, another regional run here in Florida and Miami.
It's actually, I think this is the first film that I actually want to release on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I think we should release on Blu-ray.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it would be dope. We'll release it as a box set with our other short.
Yeah. I think
That
it'd
way
be
they
awesome.
have to watch.
Yeah.
But I think they should only be like a few of them, like a very limited release. And once that's up,
Okay,
you
but
can
instead
get
of-
I love the one that you want with the high fidelity quality is the one you shot with the phone.
with a phone.
My thing is,
Blu-ray 4K.
I think we should name the prints after the actors. So like the first 100 prints will be the Diana release.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second
after
one
that,
will be
Don.
Don.
Like
Yeah.
Don, Ernesto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
down.
think it's a good idea.
So two narrative films, but we also have 2 documentaries that are being worked on right now, which are VR 360 documentaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, so White Elephant, part of White Elephant, we have like a VR wing where like it's essentially like me and Kevin's exploratory let's not give a fuck about anything space. We just finished a project that we won an Innovators Award for at NAB, and then they flew us out to Seattle to receive the grant, and then we had to go to Vegas to present. It was a bitch.
It looked very lavish.
Mm.
Talking
that's-
about
that's-
social
that
media
Instagram-
aesthetic.
It's that
That's what I'm
Instagram
saying.
shit.
That's what I'm saying. It's
That's
social
why I
media
have
aesthetic.
trouble. Like I'm not allowed on the company Instagram.
We were actually camping out under the
Who
Vegas
runs
sun.
that?
Eddie.
I'm the only sane person.
Yeah,
who can
Yeah.
run it.
He has a marketing
Eddie
degree.
and Eddie's wife is a marketing genius.
Oh, okay.
It's shout to Ashley Rose. Fucking marketing genius. So she's so much better at this shit than I'll ever be. And I was allowed on the Instagram for one day.
I know. It was the day you were on the stories, and I was like, Ron's having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never seen so much activity on this day.
Yeah. And then I was taken off the Instagram
Immediately.
because I can't be trusted. And I was like, what? And they're like, no.
You were like doing MTV Cribs.
Yeah, bro. I was about it. I'm telling you right now. I don't know if I create good content or not, but I create content. Okay.
Yeah.
I was watching it.
But yeah, you
Eddie
throw that
does
shit
that
against
shit.
the wall, some of it's bound to stink.
Yeah, I'm just out here trying to do me. but yeah, we got, like I said, award. We got another grant for. We've been like swimming in grants lately. We got another grant for a project called King Tide, which is a VR 360 project. Okay, so this whole thing is about environmentalism, and that's all great. But check this out: you can fly through South Beach, homie. Which, yes, it's conservatism and like environmental climate change, blah blah blah. Like, that's
But you put on a
wonderful.
headset. And
But you
fly
put on a
to the
headset and
beach.
you literally fly like a superhero through South
That's
Beach.
awesome.
It's awesome. So I'm like, everyone will work. We have like 2 computer engineers in our collective that work with us. We have 1 communication specialist that work with us. Kevin is on it. Kevin Darza, Kevin Barries is on it. I'm on it. So everyone's like, yeah, man, like environmentalism, climate change. I'm like, yo,
Also, let's fly
fly
on
Flying
South
South
Beach.
Beach. Yeah, so we have like a really good mix of shit, and then we have one more project that just won a grant, which technically, because we work with the University of Florida a lot on our VR stuff, and technically the project is called Project Shell. It's like an acronym, something about loggerheads, but like
It's really cold.
yeah, it's okay. I don't know if it's technically called Project Shell, but I call it I Am a Turtle. Because because the whole premise of this project is there's this chair you sit in, and you put on this headset, and you from the chair you become a turtle, and you have to try
Yes.
to find the fucking ocean. and because you're a turtle, which I pitched UF I Am a Turtle, and they were like, we think this project is great. We should call it something that
Shell.
sounds like a
Shell.
project.
What?
Yeah.
Come on.
And I was like, okay, this is what we settled on. It's called Project Shell or I Am a Turtle. I got the head,
That's
the
the whole
subline.
thing.
Yeah, I got
Or
the,
I'm a turtle.
the subtitle, and they were down because we got the grant. It's like $35K or something like that
Yes.
to build it. So I was like, all right, dope.
I am a turtle.
So you get to sit in the chair, and so much of what we do in our collective is just us wanting to do shit that we think is cool.
Yeah.
So like you get to sit.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get to sit and be a turtle, and you have to figure out what is the city and what is the ocean. And like, who doesn't want to be a fucking turtle? Like that shit's dope.
I mean, you're like 10 seconds old at that point.
Exactly. You know how like incredibly conflicted you feel.
Yeah.
You feel alone and yet surrounded. Like there's
By your peers.
Yeah.
Some
You're
are
trying to
going
make,
to the
like,
certain depth. Some
What
are going to
feels
the
like a
ocean.
40,000-mile trek to the ocean
But it's really 10 feet.
because you're like an inch
10
tall.
feet. Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
It's like a metaphor about life.
Shit
right
is
there.
real as fuck, and your life is on the line, dude. That's your life.
Wow.
Our perspective, I think that what we want to do with all of our projects is we want to challenge the status quo in any medium we work in.
Yeah.
So anything that we do, like there's just one idea that I have that I threw out the other day, and they were like, "Dude, what the fuck?" It's just constantly trying to create something that is just trying to create something that your audience would just be like, "What is that?"
Right.
You know, like and then they'll enjoy it, but they'll just not have experienced something quite like it.
Yeah.
And so Nina's a good example of that when we show the film around, and
Yeah.
they're like, the first 3 minutes is an Instagram story,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh shit, I've never quite seen that," and you're like, "Dope, so job accomplished.
Yeah.
I
Right.
showed you something."
I mean, it's so hard now, and
Yeah.
the like
It's
where
just
like
weird.
how we're living. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just like there's so many things accessible at all times that
Yeah.
like there is that constant challenge of, all right, well, how can we make it different, kind of
Yeah.
thing. If someone were to tell you, when you were right entering middle school, that the three of you would be sitting in a room together talking about this, would you have believed them?
No way.
no.
No.
Not a million.
I never
Especially
would've
as
thought-
teachers.
Especially as professors.
Oh.
If you would have told me 2 years ago, 3 years ago that I'd be sitting here as a teacher, I'd be like, "Who the fuck is dumb enough to hire me?"
Yeah. No, I never thought I would become a filmmaker when I was that age. I think I was just so brainwashed by society telling me that like you need to get like a regular job that I never thought that creating art was okay.
Right.
It was almost like a taboo. I liked art, but I was like, I'm not gonna create it for a living. I gotta become a lawyer or a doctor or something, go into marketing. And I mean, I had decided.
The 6th grade being like, I should go into marketing.
I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you, that was me in 6th grade being like, I guess marketing, because I suck at science. I suck at math.
Wait, what's your master's degree?
My master's degree is in
Marketing.
I was like, you know what? I gotta get a backup in this just in case.
Why in your brain is marketing so solid?
Because it's like the only fun adult job. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer.
It's like,
Well, like making commercials.
Since childhood, you're
Yeah.
like, well, worst comes to worst, I'll just go into
Just go to
marketing.
marketing. But you know why? It's because of Don Draper
Don Draper?
from Mad Men.
Don
I watched
Draper.
I
Okay,
watched
but
the
that
Mad
wasn't
Men.
around
Yeah, it
when
wasn't
you were
around
in
yet.
middle
Yeah.
school.
But
You've
that's
already
what
given up your
cemented
age a
my
long
idea.
time ago.
It just cemented my idea to go into marketing because I saw the first episode of Mad Men, and this man with his shirt off and his sexy chest was drinking whiskey and like smoking Lucky Strikes and like sleeping with all these women. And then he would show up to an office.
We're halfway there. We're just
halfway through,
drinking
and
whiskey.
he would present this like pitch for this marketing ad, and people were applauding him. And he'd go home and drink more whiskey, and I was like, "That's it. That's what I want."
I just want to drink whiskey and smoke cigarettes and pinch people and fuck bitches.
You're missing the most important thing. He wants to be applauded as well.
He wants to be applauded the whole way.
So that's why I went back to school and got my master's in marketing because of Don Draper. I was like, "That's the American dream right there."
God damn.
No science, no math.
Bueno.
Just
You know Don Draper's not a nice guy.
yeah, but he has a nice life.
But art is subjective.
But
So is marketing.
So what's something that you guys would tell your like freshman year selves?
Something I would tell my freshman year self.
Yeah.
Like freshman year of high school.
Freshman year of high school, yeah. Knowing all that you know now.
That Ronald guy wants to steal your girlfriend.
Hey, if it makes you feel
Be
better,
careful with that guy.
if it makes you feel better, I lost that one anyway.
Oh.
So you're
He
good.
won for a while.
It was a good run.
It was a good one.
Yeah,
It was a
I think
good run.
You'd be like, if you ever have money, don't give it to these guys.
Yeah.
You can't get an investment back.
No, I think seriously what I would tell myself is make art relentlessly and don't sit and worry about what other people are gonna think about what you make. just make it and be happy with what you're doing on the day to day. I think that's what I would say. Don't be scared to make art.
That's not bad.
But I feel like at that age you weren't scared to make art. Where I was.
Me?
Yeah, and maybe Kevin was just a little bit scared.
I
And
don't
you were
know,
just like,
I don't
I'm
know
already
why
making
I never
art.
had that particular.
You never had that problem. You were just making it anyways.
Yeah, I think what I would tell myself if I was in the ninth grade, I would be like, shit. Can I think for a sec?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got mine.
Kevin, you're up.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I went back and I told my ninth grade self, like one of the most important things is, and I think we talked about this a little bit actually on Friday. It's that the family you choose is just as valid as the family you get.
Yeah, I agree.
Because growing up, you get a lot of insecurities, and you get, there's only a finite amount of people you can turn to until you get an answer that you feel comfortable with. And you learn as you grow that the people you surround yourself with eventually become just as important to you
Yeah.
than the people that just life puts your way.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
I think that's a good point. I think that's beautiful. I love you.
Thank you.
I love you too.
I love everyone.
I think I'd be like, yo, you're gonna fuck up a lot. I think it's like you're gonna make some really, really stupid choices, and you're gonna regret a lot of those stupid choices, and you're gonna be like, wow, what a stupid way to fuck up everything. I'm a piece of shit. Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because it works out. In weird, unpredictable, and completely inevitable ways, you're gonna find yourself in certain places with certain people, doing things that you love for money, doing things you love for passion, and all of the mistakes that you made will be the reasons you're there. I think I would say that. I think I would warn myself of all the terrible things that I'm going to make mistakes with, and then I'd be like, don't worry about it. It's gonna be fine. Just kind of keep going. Because I think that at one point life gets really hard, and fear of just like fuck that I completely fucked this up really permeates. And in my experience, the reason why, if I have any success today, the reason why I have that success is because I was so like dramatically unsuccessful before, and I try to tell my students, like, if I've tried 10 things in my life, I've failed at 9.5 of them.
How do you make honest art without experience?
Yeah. And so I find myself now at 30 with like, by some miracle I have money in my bank, and I have food on my plate, and I'm okay, and I find myself now really relying on all of these amazing stories and experiences that I've had to create the things that make those things possible. And so I don't know where I would be if I wasn't a complete fuck up. And so I really love how much I fucked this up. And I don't think I would stop that from happening.
True. Very true.
So you guys said what's next is you guys have a couple projects.
Yeah.
So what's something new that you guys individually have done recently?
There's some shit I can't talk about.
Like in just general,
In general,
yeah.
like
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in general.
When I was in Vegas, I decided to do something really dumb that, for the weirdest reason, worked out. I've been like a poker aficionado for many years, like 10 years. I've just been playing poker all the time, and I it's just something I do for a hobby. It's like fun. Some people fish, I play poker, and I had never bought in to to a poker game for more than $100 before because I'm not crazy or a gambling addict. So I was like, $100, $100, and I just had we had some success with some of our projects, and I was looking pretty in Vegas, and so I was like, you know what, I'm going to make $1,000 bet. And I placed.
That was like that's rent though.
Yeah.
That's like almost double rent.
Yeah.
Are you sure this isn't something 30-year-old Ronald wants to go tell high school Ronald?
Yeah. I placed $1,000 bet for the first time in my life, and I'm not gonna tell you what happened. Nah, I'm just kidding.
I was like, get the story there.
I placed $1,000 bet and I lost.
But you took that risk, you know.
Well,
don't encourage this.
Well, the reason it worked out is because after placing that $1,000 bet and losing, no, I bought in for like $300 and I went on this sick run, and then I left Vegas positive $600.
Oh, okay.
I made it back.
Yeah.
But gambling is not always the right.
Even though he made money. Gambling is
it's something new. It's something new, right? Like it's I wanted
great.
to try something that I've never done before when I was in Vegas. So I was like, I'm gonna place $1,000 bet and see what that feels like. Funny thing, it doesn't feel like anything. Placing a $5 bet and $1,000 bet feels exactly the same.
They're just numbers, bro.
It just you just lose more money.
Yeah.
That's why you can never
Or
be an
gain more money.
accountant.
Who knows?
Man.
Anyway, something new you've done.
Oh. How soon does it have to be? Can it be within the year? Or is it
Yeah. I'm not a monster.
It's hard. I was like, do I ever do anything new? I think within this year, and this is gonna sound dumb compared to your like cool, like I bet a bunch of money.
I really don't think anyone listening to this thinks I'm cool. I think they're like, what a fucking idiot.
But that who knows ring he's got going, I might try that
good.
out.
I got that one guy in Australia. Maybe he's
Got that hookup. I started color correcting less than a year ago, and it was because I was so burnt out from all the other forms of filming I had been doing. So for the last 15 years, all I've been doing is making movies, and that means like shooting movies like as a DP, directing movies, editing movies, producing movies, and I just felt like I had done everything on a film set, and I was getting so bored of doing the same things over and over and over. So I wanted to experience filming from a different kind of point of view. So I literally Googled color correction tutorials, and I did I think over 100 hours of just tutorials on the internet to learn how to like work with different colors on a screen, and it gave me this new love for what I do, because it was looking at the same art but in a completely different way that I had never done before. I never stopped to think to myself like, how blue are the blues in this image, or how bright are the highlights in this image, or how does the actress's skin tone compare to the overall like feel of this shot. And allowing myself to see those things gave me a new like love for what I do, because I understand now that it's like deeper than just shooting something and editing something. There's this whole new layer that kind of excites me to be a filmmaker again. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Kevin?
Well, I didn't make $1,000 gambling mistake,
Oh,
but
good.
yeah,
We don't need 3 of those in this group.
yeah. I do a lot of investing though, and they don't always turn out so great. So I guess it's the same,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Some of
true.
them do turn out pretty
So
good.
I'm not the only fucked up. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I've always had, it was interesting, they actually asked this, because like very recently I started doing this. I've always had a passion for music, and obviously my friends have played music and have done things. So, since high school, my music taste has expanded around. It's not just metal and like classic rock.
Not just metal?
No, man, it's honestly Spotify doesn't know what to do with me anymore.
Who are you?
Yeah, they have no idea what to do with me anymore. That algorithm is messed up. Yeah,
Good.
they should be paying me
Good.
at this point. But so I started actually learning guitar, and I actually started doing like music beats online.
Cool.
Yeah, and I started doing it ironically, which is kind of funny because I was like,
You start almost everything. Is it
Yeah.
half your stock portfolio you
Ironic.
making? Ironic.
yeah, yeah, actually it is. It's amazing. It's
Why
pretty
are you
awesome.
like this? Why are you so spiteful?
I don't know. I think it's just the way.
He's
like,
surrounded by love and he has
Yeah,
so much
exactly.
hate.
So much hate.
I think like the yes and mine goes yes and fuck you. It's like yes and go fuck yourself like every time. So at one point someone was like talking about like those like really popular now like lo-fi hip hop.
Yeah.
So I was
Those are
like,
awesome.
yeah. And someone was like, "Oh, this is like the epitome of music." And I
The epitome
shit you
of
not. I quoted, "This is the epitome of music."
Ever heard the Beatles? No, man.
And I
fuck
go,
that.
yeah. And I go,
Lo-fi.
is it? And they're like, yeah. I was like, all right. And then one day I went home and I just started making a song. And like I had to. This is funny thing is that it was on Fruity Loops, and on Fruity Loops,
Fruity Loops still a thing?
it's called now FL Studio.
Oh.
And here's
Oh,
the thing.
Studio.
But now here's the thing with FL Studio. FL Studio, if you save a song on the trial version, you can never open up the song if you close it. So I spent a whole night
Wait,
sitting
what?
down. Yeah, because it's the trial version. So I spent the whole night making the
Oh,
song
scam.
with this knowledge. And I left it open on my laptop and I brought it to school and I played it. And they listened to it once like, oh, that's so awesome. Who wrote that? And I said, I did. Eating shit all night. The epitome of music my ass. And I closed
You
it.
closed
So
it.
the song can
Gone
never
forever.
be opened again.
In the abyss of music.
Yeah, in the abyss of musical geniuses.
Wow.
And
Can you
like,
imagine Orson Welles did that? He made Citizen Kane, showed it to like 5
If
people,
Orson
and like
Welles-
that, delete.
If Orson Welles was fucking Kevin and Darcy, that's exactly what he'd do.
yeah.
Oh my god.
He'd show it to the distributor. The distributor would be like, "This is amazing." Then he'd be like, "Clink,
Clink.
too bad.
It's
Gone
done.
forever.
Fuck you and your epitome of music."
That's some punk rock shit.
That was-
With bags under his eyes and shit, staying up
Yeah.
all night just to spite somebody.
That
To
you don't
be
even
fair,
know.
it was like a 1 hour tutorial and like 3 hours of dicking around. It wasn't that crazy.
That's a metaphor for life right there.
Yeah. And there were original samples there, man. I recorded my own audio tracks.
Yes, and fuck you.
Like, yeah. We're done.
That's the name of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. What's something new you guys want to try individually?
Like how,
Ooh.
like a normal person would just answer the question. We go into like
Tangents.
Oh no
Why are
no.
we like this? And why can't we just answer questions like normal people?
I can't answer that
A
question.
new thing.
When they did it to me, I was like, I know this question's coming. This is
And-
my podcast. What the fuck?
yeah.
Oh, you know what I really want to do? I want to try to eat healthy.
Get out of here.
I
Yeah, I
wanted
know
that
it's
one.
crazy.
I wanted that once.
I
for
want
like
to
a
try
full
a
3 hours.
vegetable that's not covered in oil.
How
I
would you
can't
do
do
that?
It's in Hispanic households. It's impossible.
Oh no.
Impossible.
It's
And they're like, all right, so like this is all the crap you ate. Here's all the lechon and like yuca you ate. But have this salad, but I'm gonna cover it in olive oil. Just hold
Yes.
up. It's healthy.
Just hold up, hold up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been on like a broccoli binge, but it's only because it's covered in olive oil and salt.
That's the
Yeah,
only
there
way.
you
Yeah,
go.
that's the only way to like be happy doing that.
Yeah.
I ate a vegetable in like 2004.
Oh, okay.
do,
Just
you
one.
remember, do you remember which one?
Nah,
Just one.
nah, it was a mistake. It was instant steak.
Instinct. So
I-
you want to eat healthy, Eddie? What do you want to do?
This is gonna sound ridiculous, but I want to create an installation.
I want to do that too.
Right?
That's
I
dope.
want
That's
to
really
create
cool.
art that I'm uncomfortable with. So I already feel like I'm comfortable with filmmaking,
Yo, let's do that.
but I want to like
For
like
real.
I've walked into
No, real,
museums.
on the real. Let's do
I
that shit
saw.
right
So
now.
let me see what I saw in Japan. In Japan, I went to this city on the east coast of Japan called Kanazawa. It's not very popular with most tourists, but it's still kind of popular. And they have a very popular museum there, which is all about like modern art. But, like,
Is that
I
the
saw
one
you
with
posted
the,
with
with
a
the
picture.
pool?
yeah.
It was
That's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah,
That
it's
is so
incredible.
cool.
Awesome.
It's all like 21st century art. And this one dude, like this one young cat, he created this entire room, which is probably the size of like my whole, like the third floor of NIFA. Huge floor. And he filled it with different appliances from a home. And he put them all on different timers. And they all turn on differently and they play music together. So a blender spins while like a washing machine goes.
Right,
And
it's
it creates a
frequency.
beat.
And it's
And
like
then
the
it's
symphony of
random.
life or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So then, like a hair dryer will start while like a sink will start running water, and it produces
Whoa.
music beats. I want to create an installation piece.
I'm
You
telling
walk into a room and there's art.
I'm telling you right now, we're doing that.
Yeah, it's gonna
Okay.
happen. You guys heard
Yeah.
it here
Oh,
first.
okay.
Yeah, we're doing that.
It's happening.
That's
so
dope.
Yeah.
You just heard it first.
Yeah,
The We're So Young podcast.
we'll write a we'll write a grant for it.
I can't wait for
That's
2
how it
years
goes.
from now when we're looking back and I created some crazy installation
Yeah.
Yeah.
where you like walk into a room and like get like flipped upside
You just
down.
gotta find.
Well,
you gotta
here's the
find
thing. You guys actually say you're gonna do it, and you do it,
We
which
do
is,
it.
even,
That's true.
which is like the best
Yeah.
thing ever.
So true.
Yeah. When we say we're gonna do something, we do that.
That's just the thing that we just throw the craziest ideas at each other and we're like, yeah, we can do
That's
that.
dope. I just think
Let's
that
do
you
that.
should inject like computers into that somehow.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's like and then we'll bring Deep and he'll just create a software.
So
for
where
us
were you
to-
guys? Shh, you can't give them all the ideas.
Yeah.
Oh right, my bad. Yeah.
We're mic'd right now.
Yeah, we're mine.
This is exactly how this works, but it's literally us hanging out, being like, "What if we did this?" Like, something I want to do.
Yes.
I want. I always my ex-wife had been to Europe like 2 or 3 times and I've never been, and she would go, "Let's just go," and I was always like, "Nah," because I always had this idea that I've been very poor before, so I always wanted my brain to take me places. And so I was always like, I'm not going to Europe on my own time. My projects will send me to Europe, and my head will get me to Europe. And so this year, I think, is the first time that I make something that I think will do that. So I want to go to Europe, but I want to go to Europe on the back of the talent of the people in my collective. Because I've been to different places in the United States on their backs. We went to Vegas and New York and Seattle and all these other places, but I've never been to Europe. And so I want Nina to be my ticket to Europe. That's what I would like.
It's gonna be. It's gonna be that second. We're gonna be there soon.
Well, thank you guys for doing this.
It was fun.
No, that was
This is
amazing.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Let's do it again.
yeah. So people are gonna be able to find you on the website's like blog, and I'll put all of the information on there. But where is there a website that people can follow you? Is there an Instagram where people can
It's all
follow
the same.
White Elephant?
So
Yeah.
White Elephant Group, which is WEG Films. So WEGFilms.com or WEG Films on Twitter or WEG Films on Instagram. It's all the same across the board.
There's
Yeah,
a website for Nina.
There's a website from Nina right now, which is postcardmovie.com,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be up for the next year and a half while the film tours the
And your
world.
beautiful face is all over
Yes, it's
Yeah.
gonna be
Yeah.
right up front. So that'll be us for the next year and a half.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
No,
Yeah.
thank you. It was fun. We also got to call you about a film.
Thanks again for listening to the We're So Young podcast. Like what you've been hearing? Help spread the word. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate, review, and tell your friends about We're So Young. And don't forget to follow us on our socials, at We're So Young Podcast on Instagram, at We're So Young Pod on Twitter, and We're So Young Podcast on Facebook. Let's all get inspired to try new things together. That's it for now. Tune in on the 1st and the 15th of each month for new episodes. Until then, step out of your comfort zones and try new things, 'cause we're so young.